Hello, Optimancers! So I just noticed that the Cleric and Revised Species survey is now open, so I am going to be filling that out. I have my Cleric and Revised Species PDF off to the side here, so I will be referring to that as I fill this out. And before we get started, I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas this Sunday. Have a great day. Alright, let's get going. Now, did I just read the privacy policy before I agreed to it? As a matter of fact, I did. There will be a significant cut here. Let's move ahead. Would you like to rate the material presented in the Cleric and Revised Species? Yes, I would. And the first edition I played was basic. Let's move on. Have you play tested the Cleric class? I have not play tested it. How satisfied were you overall with the Cleric class? Alright, so let's look at the Cleric class here. The hit points, the proficiencies, armor training, that was all pretty much the same. I like the idea behind Channel Divinity, but I devoted basically a whole video to explaining why this is a problem for one level dips, because Divine Spark is based on proficiency bonus, and then it is based on proficiency bonus again. So it's based doubly on proficiency bonus, which makes it extremely effective with a one level dip. So I think that's a big mistake. Otherwise, if this wasn't proficiency bonus, I would really like this feature. The spellcasting, of course, has the modified spellcasting we've seen with spellcasters so far in terms of preparing spells. I liked picking your Holy Order at level 2. I thought that was cool. Of course, the big change is the Cleric subclass is gained at level 3. I've heard a lot of comments saying that that means you haven't picked your god yet until level 3. So you're a first and second level Cleric casting spells from who knows where. I think the idea would be that you would still choose your god at level 1, but you wouldn't get any domain features until level 3. At least that's the way I would read it. I understand why they're standardizing when subclasses come into effect, so I think I'm okay with it. Smite Undead seemed fine to me. I kind of like the ability to do a little bit of damage rather than just look at a chart to see if something is destroyed or not. Let's see, subclass feature, Blessed Strikes. Then you choose a second option from the Holy Order feature, and I'm not sure I like this one, because I kind of think that a 9th level feature should be better than a 2nd level feature. And if we're choosing our second Holy Order, then this is necessarily weaker than the 2nd level feature, because always your first selection is going to be the selection you wanted the most. So I'm not a huge fan of that, honestly. What I would prefer is if it did something like took the Holy Order you already joined and scaled it somehow. That would be cool. Divine Intervention was fine. It was moderately changed, but not in any really significant way. Same thing with Greater Divine Intervention. And so, yeah, overall, I thought the Cleric was okay. Just a couple little hiccups, I think. Now, the subclass Life Domain, I thought was not all that exciting to me, I gotta say. Of course, we're going to lose first level spells off the domain spells because we don't get our subclass until level 3. Disciple of Life has basically a big nerf now, that it only works on the round the spell is cast. Of course, this prevents combining it with things like Goodberry, but it also prevents using something like Aura Vitality round after round and always getting that bonus from Disciple of Life. If you're going to do that, then I would think that we might want the additional hit points to be more than this. That would be one way you could kind of close that loophole and still make this a decent feature. I think leaving it as it was, except just applying the nerf, makes it a much less interesting feature. Preserve Life I have never liked, and I was really disappointed to see this last sentence still remains in this subclass. Blessed Healer is fine, and Supreme Healing, not a big fan of this either, because this one says when you would normally roll one or more dice to restore hit points to a creature with a spell you cast with a spell slot, except at 14th level, this is where we get heal. Now, if they redesign heal so it's a actual roll, then this could be a good feature, but with heal as it is in the player's handbook, there's no roll. So this is only really applying to the weak healing spells that we're probably not using nearly as much when we're 14th level. Also, shouldn't this probably apply to the divine channeling you get at first level, where you're rolling d8s for hit point recovery? But because it's not a spell, it wouldn't apply with the supreme healing. So you're doing a lot of healing with the life cleric that you're not enhancing. And it's the life cleric. That's all they do. So the cleric overall, I think, is okay. The life domain, it needs more. So how satisfied was I overall with the Cleric class? Satisfied. Creating a Cleric is fine. Multiclassing the Cleric is fine. The Channel Divinity, I've got to say I'm dissatisfied because of that issue with the 1 level dip. So I think I've got to put dissatisfied on all 3, but I'll explain on the bottom why. Spellcasting is fine. I like the Holy Order. We'll give that a very satisfied. Cleric subclass at level 3, I am fine with. I'm curious if the overall results of this survey are going to be satisfactory for Cleric subclass at level 3. Gotta think a lot of players are going to be unsatisfied with that. The feats, of course, we'll just go ahead and put the satisfied under the feats all the way down already. Epic boons are too weak, so I'm dissatisfied with those still. Prepared spells are fine, and then let's move up and fill in the blanks. Smite Undead, I thought was fine. Getting a subclass feature at level 6, I got no problem with that. Blessed Strikes is fine. The Second Holy Order needs something better, I think. Subclass feature is fine. Divine Intervention is fine. And that's it. Okay, so here's what I wrote. Channel Divinity at level 1 is too good for a 1 level dipping Cleric. Using proficiency bonus for both uses and number of d8s means quadratic scaling. So all of you who corrected me saying exponential scaling, there you go, I got it this time. Quadratic scaling of this feature with no additional level investment. I like the ideas in this feature, but I want my 10th level Cleric to be better at this than the Cleric 1 Wizard 9. At level 9, the Cleric should get something better than a second pick off a second level feature. Maybe scale your original selection up or something, but just pick your second favorite. That's a letdown. As always, epic boons are too weak for a 20th level feature. Something else needs to be given at 20th level, or these feats need to be made a lot better. Oh boy, okay, so the life domain subclass as presented in the article. Life domain overall is too weak, I'm dissatisfied. 3rd level domain spells, I'm okay with it. 3rd level Disciple of Life, no. If you're going to make it weaker in one way, you got to make it stronger in another way, because otherwise you got just a crappy feature. Preserve Life, very dissatisfied. Why did you keep that stupid part that you can't heal somebody beyond half their hit point total? That is a pain in the neck to play at the table, and this is in the player's handbook, so people know this by now. Why it's there, I have no idea. It's also not a very good feature because of that limitation. Blessed Healer is fine. And Supreme Healing, I'm dissatisfied. It should allow you to increase all your healing, not just your healing that uses a spell slot, that is a spell, that uses dice. Alright, so I wasn't overly nice here. I was not satisfied with this subclass. Disciple of Life was given a huge limitation and no benefit over the original to balance that out. Then I said, Preserve Life still has that super annoying last sentence where everyone at the table has to subtract their current hit points from their half hit point maximum. Just let the feature heal without these pointless limitations. And then Supreme Healing only adds the kinds of healing this 14th level Cleric isn't doing much anymore. Why no bonus to Channel Divinity Healing or the heal spell? I mean, if the Life Cleric is supposed to be a specialist at healing, make him good at healing. How satisfied were you overall with the character species as presented in the article? Wasn't a fan of the Ardling. I thought the Dragonborn, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say very satisfied. And the Goliath, I really liked it. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Here we go. So we're looking at the animal ancestries. Climber gave you a climb speed, and then improved your unarmed strike damage once per turn. This is not useful to most characters. Most characters aren't making unarmed strikes. Then we had Flyer. This did not give you fly. It did not even give you glide. It says you glide, but what it's really doing is giving you a single person feather fall. Also, you get advantage if you take the jump action. Racer made you really, really fast if you take the dash action. If you don't take the dash action, you actually are not faster at all. So only if you do the dash action. And I mean, the dash action happens, but it's not that common. So this isn't coming up very much. I mean, in most combats, probably not at all. And then Swimmer let you hold your breath for an hour, and you got a swim speed. And then you got resistance to cold damage. That was probably the best of the lot of them, because at least resistance to a damage type is okay. So I guess I'm satisfied with it. I didn't think it was overly inspired. Racer, at least it's unique. I'm between dissatisfied and satisfied. I think it needs a little more. Like, increase your base speed as well. Flyer, I mean, what's the point? Don't call it flyer when it has nothing to do with flying. And climber, climb speed, it's just not good enough. So, yeah, that's where I am on those. Divine Magic gave you one Cleric cantrip. You start with the Thaumaturgy spell, but you can switch it out for a different cantrip if you want. And I guess that's okay. And Keen Senses, you have proficiency in the Perception skill, which is okay. Nothing here I loved, gotta tell you. Alright, so I basically said the animal ancestries are too weak. The climb speed is no big deal, and most characters don't make unarmed strikes. A feature called Flyer then refers to glide in the description and does neither. It's just a self-only feather fall. Racer should probably increase your base speed. Dashing doesn't happen enough in the game for this to be very good. Alright, so the Dragonborn. Breath weapon. They used Fizban's version. Very satisfied. Damage resistance is fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with damage resistance. Dark vision is fine. Draconic flight. Yeah, I think it's great on a Dragonborn. Makes perfect sense to me. Really happy with these changes. The breath weapon is now good. Using Fizban's was the right move. Draconic Flight is a good thematic feature for the Dragonborn, as well as being useful. Alright, and the Goliath. So the way the Goliath works, I'll just bring it over here. Here we go. So you're going to pick one giant ancestry, and you have to pick it from the bottom down here. So you can be a Cloud's Jaunt, Fires Burn, Frost's Chill, Hills Tumble, Stone's Endurance, and Storm's Thunder. And then you can pick one of them, and that kind of gives you the thematics of your character. I mean, the mechanics are actually similar than the Ardling, but I think they did a better job with these than they did with the Ardling. In fact, it's almost hard to believe that this is from the same document that the Ardling was from. Then at 5th level, you get to turn large, which is pretty cool. Its bonus action means you can do it in combat, and it lasts 10 minutes, so that's great. And then you get Powerful Build, which gives you advantage on saving throws you make to end the grapple condition on yourself, and you count as one size larger for determining all the stuff. So I'd like this one. So the Cloud's Jaunt, that's the one that lets you teleport 30 feet, proficiency bonus times for long rest. I mean, how many different kinds of elves have this feature already? That said, I don't mind it. It's fine. Fire's Burn lets you do an additional d10 of damage on any attack that uses an attack roll once per turn. So not just unarmed strikes, but any attack roll. Great. And another thing, they don't exclude unarmed strikes here. It doesn't have to be with a weapon. So I like it a lot. Oh, and I should mention it adds to spell attacks as well. Frost Chill is like Fire's Burn, except it's a d6 instead of a d10, but it also slows the creature by 10 feet. I'm happy with that. Hills Tumble allows you to knock a creature prone if it's large size or smaller and you hit it with an attack and do damage to it. I think that's pretty cool. So I'm giving that one very satisfied. Stone's Endurance is what the Goliath had in the first place, the damage reduction thing, and it's fine. I mean, I've never thought the Goliath was a bad race. It's an okay race. Storm's Thunder is the one I didn't like. So when you take damage from a creature within 60 feet of you, you can use your reaction to deal a d8 thunder damage to the creature. D8 doesn't feel like very much to use your reaction on. I mean, at level 1, I think it's alright, but I think this one, it just, because you're going to level up that D8 eventually, it's just not worth a reaction. Like the thing with Fire's Burn and Frost Chill is, although they're not scaling, they're not using up anything. They're not using your action or a bonus action, but Storm's Thunder is using your reaction, and it's not scaling, and that's a problem. Large form, like it, and Powerful Build is fine. Alright, so I said, overall, I'm happy with the new Goliath. Hills Tumble I thought was really cool. Storm's Thunder I think might be okay at super low level, but eventually using your reaction to do a d8 damage is just horrible. And large form is great. Let's move on. Please rank your preference for the following terms. Drag items from the left-hand list to the right-hand list to order them. Species, kind, subtype, with your type being your creature type. And I am supposed to rank these. This isn't what I was expecting, so let me see. I mean, I think species is fine. I mean, they are species, right? These are different species. Elves and dwarves and humans and whatever, they are different species. So that's the term that probably makes sense. It makes more sense than race. There's too much stuff that I'd keep with your own kind and stuff like that. No thanks. Kind seems to me too much like race. Subtype, I guess, would be next, and then kind last. Why did you choose your favorite? Because it's the most accurate description of what was previously called race. An elf isn't a different race than a human. It is a different species altogether. At least, that's my take on it. I think I've seen fantasy books and such where the different races, like elves and dwarves and stuff, they are all kind of offshoots of the same species, but I think in most fantasy, the idea is that they've evolved separately. So if they do have a common ancestor, it has not been common for a long, long time. Do you use feats when playing 5th edition D&D? Always. Are you satisfied with the elements of the feats section as presented in the article? So I'm just going to check that out. So the ability score improvement was just printed in again, but we had 3 new feats. They were all epic boons. Again, none of them are good enough to be a 20th level feature. That said, the epic boon of Fate, I think, is probably the best epic boon we've seen so far. Epic boon of Spell Recall is absolutely crap, and epic boon of True Sight is fine. But I really just don't think they're doing these epic boons very well. Ability score improvement is fine. Epic boon of Fate is fine. Epic boon of Spell Recall is terrible. Epic boon of True Sight just isn't quite good enough. So I said the epic boon of Spell Recall is awful. It's recovering 1 5th level slot once per day on a 20th level character. Why would anyone think this deserves to be called epic? This would be an okay 10th level feature, I suppose. Epic boon of True Sight is a bit weak for a 20th level feature. Maybe make it 120 feet, because right now it is a 60-foot range True Sight. That to me is not a 20th level feature. Alright, how satisfied were you with the elements of the rules glossary section as presented in the article? Let's go through them one at a time. So we start with the aid spell. The aid spell used to increase your maximum hit points as well as your current hit points. Now it provides temporary hit points. That is cleaner. It's definitely a debuff, and we're seeing this with spells. They are being debuffed. Now I'm wondering if that'll be universal or they're just picking on a few spells. But it does, on the other hand, have the increase to the number of creatures you can affect. You can affect up to 6 creatures, so that'll be your whole party. So I do like that. Overall, I think I'm satisfied with the change. So the attack action, they changed it so that when you equip weapons, you can equip or unequip one weapon before or after each attack. So it totally clarifies how equipping weapons was supposed to work before. It was a bit vague. I am very happy about that. In fact, that was the exact suggestion I made to them. Alright, so talking about spells that got a nerf. Banishment got a huge nerf. So now a creature you banish gets a saving throw every turn to come back. And in order to permanently banish, like an aberration or celestial or whatever, they basically have to fail 10 saving throws in a row for that to happen, which will almost never happen. Now, they also got rid of, there used to be a loophole where you could cast banishment on yourself if you were in another plane, and then it would be like a plane shift for you. Now it takes you to a demi-plane, so you don't have that exploit anymore, and that change I'm absolutely fine with. But I gotta say, until I see the rest of the spells, this isn't good enough. So, I'm supposed to be comparing this to the player's handbook spells right now, and this does not compare. So, I have to say dissatisfied. If they are going to nerf the spells across the board, all the best spells, they're all going to get a bit worse, then I might change my mind. But as it is presented here, it's just not good. The new grappled condition, I'm perfectly fine with. So guidance is the next one, and the way they change guidance now is it's the same as it was in the previous playtest, except you're no longer limited in the number of times you can benefit from guidance. And so now it's just guidance is a reaction. And that's it. And I am perfectly fine with that. I actually think that's probably exactly where it needs to be. I'm going to go ahead and say very satisfied. So the influence action that we first saw in the last playtest was very specific on what it could do. Now it is incredibly vague on what it can do. There's got to be a happy medium somewhere. But I think they've gone too far the other way. So this is one of those ones, I think, where they're presenting two versions of the same rule and seeing which one people prefer, except that I really think the best version would be something in between. I mean, it's not the end of the world. The influence action as it's presented here just kind of leaves a lot up to your DM, which is pretty much how we do it now. So I don't hate it, but I could sure use a little bit more specificity. The light weapon property. Very satisfied. So they changed the light weapon property to clarify how it works, just like with the attack action. It was the very suggestion I made to them. They happened to do it, so I definitely am very satisfied. All right, long rest changed, and the big change to long rest was there were new rules on interrupting the rest. And what it says is, and I'll just bring the document on, you can resume a long rest immediately after an interruption. If you do so, the rest requires 1 additional hour to finish per interruption. And this includes combat, casting a spell other than a 0-level spell, and 1 hour of walking or other physical exertion. I really like this. I think this is the perfect solution to this. Because if you get it in a combat in the middle of a long rest, it makes sense that you might need to sleep in a bit at the other side. But it doesn't make sense that your long rest would be absolutely ruined. Also, I think this is a nice compromise for rest casting. It prevents rest casting abuse, but it does allow you to cast a couple spells during a long rest. You're just going to have to rest a couple hours longer. Yeah, this is good. I think this is very well done. Very satisfied. So magic is now an action, and I guess that's going to just kind of put everything together. So casting a spell or using a magic item. I imagine this is just to make things simpler. I'm fine with it. Prayer of Healing was changed, and boy, it needed to be changed because Prayer of Healing is terrible in the player's handbook. But now what you're going to get is the benefit of a short rest when you cast Prayer of Healing, but you can only be affected by a Prayer of Healing spell once per long rest. I like that. I think that makes the Prayer of Healing a decent spell. I will say overall I am satisfied with it. I don't love it, but I think it's good. The Priest Pack. They actually won our opinion of the Priest Pack. So the Priest Pack costs 33 gold pieces, and it contains the following items: backpack, blanket, lamp, holy water, 7 days of rations, robe, and tinderbox. Sure, fine. Resistance, the spell, I think has the opposite problem of banishment. Because resistance used to be a poor cantrip, but giving it the same treatment as guidance and making it so that you can use your reaction to add a d4 to any saving throw you make or saving throw of somebody near you, that's too good for a cantrip. I mean, I'll take 2 levels of Wizard to get War Mage to get Arcane Deflection. This is giving me almost good a feature with a cantrip. And then Spiritual Weapon. Of course, the big thing there is Spiritual Weapon in the playtest requires your concentration. It was pointed out to me there was actually one other change, and that is the spell scaling is a little bit better. So now when you scale the spell by 1 spell level, you get an additional d8, and it used to be every 2 spell levels. Does that make Spiritual Weapon worth it? Well, compared to what we have in the Player's Handbook, I don't think so. Don't think it's good enough. And then True Sight. Well, True Sight didn't really change. They formatted it a little bit differently, but it looks pretty much the same, so I am satisfied with it. All right, so I said, love the change to wording to the attack action and the light weapon properties. Now I understand how they work. The guidance spell is better as a reaction, and I'm glad you got rid of that once per day bit. The long rest interruptions mechanic I think is really well done and makes sense. Banishment is too weak. Giving a creature a saving throw every round means that it's almost impossible to banish a demon, elemental, or whatever permanently. The other spells in the Player's Handbook are much better than this. Resistance, on the other hand, is too powerful. A reaction to get a saving throw d4 for yourself or someone nearby is too good for a cantrip. Maybe if it was a +1 or something. Spiritual Weapon is too weak if it needs concentration. If it is going to have concentration, give it more damage. How satisfied are you with the elements of the attack action as presented in the article? Equipping weapons, very satisfied. Moving between attacks looks the same to me, so I'm satisfied. I am much happier with the wording for equipping weapons. The previous version was confusing. This now makes it clear it applies to each attack. How satisfied are you with the elements of the influence action as presented in the article? So just a quick reminder here. So the attitude, it just goes over indifferent, friendly, and hostile. Then interaction, this is the one that now is really cut down and basically left up to your DM. The other version had like these charts, and they told you, if you're facing a hostile creature, this is what you can do, and these are the DCs for each thing. Now it's largely going to be in the DM's purview. The ability check, though, the one thing that did change here that I think is significant, the difficulty went up. The minimum DC for the check is 15, or the creature's intelligence score, whichever is higher. And the old version, it was 10, which is really, really low. So I think they did a good job switching the ability check to a more difficult role that makes more sense. The skills here, though, it is very vague. So it is really going to be up to your DM, which isn't the end of the world. I mean, that's how we generally play now anyways. So overall, I think I'm satisfied with it. Attitude, interaction, and ability check. I'm going to say very satisfied and just give them a thumbs up on the new DCs. So I just said I much prefer the minimum DC of 15 or the intelligence score, whichever is higher. DC of 10, just too low. Alright, so my final comments. I don't think this version of the Ardling was an improvement over the last one. Subclasses seem pretty lackluster so far. I sure hope that improves, but the life domain is another subclass where we've seen the better abilities nerfed and nothing good or cool to replace them. You also kept the most annoying mechanic of the subclass untouched. This feature can bring a creature's current hit points to no more than half its hit point maximum. Hate that. I am really pleased with an improved wording on items in the rules glossary to clear up confusion. Clear wording is always appreciated. Bravo on the Dragonborn. Now this is a species I actually want to play. Much happier with the breath weapon as well as the wing feature. The Goliath was a surprise entry and I really like it. I never minded the Goliath, but I think this improves on what we had. I don't know what's happening with the severe damage and control spell nerfs, spiritual weapon, and banishment. If they're across the board, then fine. But compared to the spells in our 2014 Player's Handbook, these are bad. Alright, and the survey is done. So I'm looking forward to the next playtest packet. I have no idea what it is going to be, but I assume we're not going to see it until the new year. So Merry Christmas, everyone. Otherwise, until next time, I am going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.